Greetings, Zimbabwe, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. We're coming to you live from our Zim Daily studios. We cross over to Grace as she gives us an interview with Honorable Tendai Biti. Do tune in and tell us where you're watching from, and also do send us your comments and your contributions, and we'll on take on the current budget as announced by Honorable Mthuli Ncube. We cross over to Grace.
Hello, Zimbabwe. Welcome to Zimbabwe Daily, the platform where we bring you news and everything that is trending. My name is Grace Kadye, and I'm going to be your host. Today, we are going to be talking about the 2022 proposed budget. When it comes to finance, economy, there is also one person who is very much passionate. And please do join me after this short break as I introduce him to you. Hello, welcome back to Zimbabwe Daily. Today I have a special guest, the former Finance Minister, Honorable Tendai Biti. Honorable, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. There is this proposed budget that Finance Minister Honorable Mthuli Ncube has just proposed for 2022. What is your take on that? How do you view that budget?
Yeah, it is a total disaster. An absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I tweeted that this budget proves beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes, I saw
Yeah, that the class of 2018, in other words, Mr. Mnangagwa's government, is the worst government in the history of governments. But when I made that tweet, I was making that statement from the comments that I'd read, particularly from the Herald. They had a live download of the budget. But having read the budget, having unpacked the budget, it's just shocking. The absurdities. It's just shocking. The instabilities. So even from a technical point of view, it's an extremely unsound, document. It's an extremely dishonest document. The starting point that Mthuli doesn't tell people is what is the exchange rate that he's using.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he anticipates and he doubles up total expenditure and revenue for 2022. Yeah. So in 2021, he expects to receive revenue for around 400 billion Zimbabwean dollars by the end of the year. By September, he had received around 300 billion Zimbabwean dollars. He has doubled that up now to over 800 billion. In fact, it's almost 1 trillion Zimbabwean dollars. But we know the revenue and expenditure for 2021 and for 2022 are the same, because he says in his budget statement that expenditure will still remain at 16% of GDP. So 2021, 16% of GDP, 2022, 16% of GDP. Yet he has doubled, implying that he must be using an unofficial parallel exchange rate of almost 1:200. So in other words, revenues are doubling, expenditure is doubling, but there is no source in his document now where the extra money is going to come from. He says inflation will be around 57%, but he must be budgeting inflation of over 100%, hence the doubling up. So from a technical point of view, Zimbabweans must ask, what is the exchange rate that is being used in this budget? Number two, Zimbabweans must ask, where is the additional revenue that is going to finance this doubling up of expenditure in 2022? He has got a growth rate of 5.5%.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
In 2021, his growth rate is 7.8%, which he attributes to agriculture. Agriculture grows by 34%. But in 2021, agriculture has got a modest growth of less than 5%. So again, where is the source of the 5.5% growth rate? The underlying assumptions on the macroeconomic framework don't tell us where the 5.5% growth rate is going to come from. But the real issue here is this, that the real challenge, the structural challenge in which we are facing in this economy is the macroeconomic disequilibrium created by the parallel exchange rates, created by the rigged auction system, created by the arbitrage where the official exchange rate has been averaging 1:85. I know it has gone down to 97, 102. Yet the parallel market rate is around 1:175, 1:180. So you have got an economy where there's an official exchange rate of 1:182, 82, but everyone else, all of us are trading on the black market rate at 1:70. So there's arbitrage, there's a mismatch. There are two parallel economies, one that trades on the official exchange rate and one that trades on the unofficial exchange rate, which the black market, which is where all of us are. Because all of us have to look for rent in 4th Street to pay the landlord who wants to be paid $80.
Can you imagine the queues that are there at the Bread Exchange?
Absolutely, you understand. So that needed to be resolved. That needed to be sorted out. This mismatch. Then you've got another distortion, which is the multiple pricing system in the economy.
Yes, I wanted to ask, what is your take on the issue of the taxation being increased?
Look, he has put himself in a hole. He has put himself in a hole by doubling up revenue expectations and expenditure expectations for 2022.
Was it a wise decision?
No, it was not. So the problem now is that he must now plug this wall, and he can only plug this wall by overtaxing Zimbabweans. So you see an array of new tax measures in this so-called pro-poor, pro-people budget. Even mobile phones are now being taxed. So if you buy a handset, before you use it, you must pay a certain percentage on the value of that handset, $30, $50 US.
And people are already suffering, and it's continuing.
And you are right to say that we are already suffering. So, it's a disaster. The other disaster I want you to talk about is the debt question. In the last 3 years, since September of 2018, Mr. Mthuli Ncube has prided himself as a creator of surpluses. So we can call him Mr. Surplus. But Mr. Surplus is very dishonest. Mr. Surplus is a big toss, because what he has been doing, he has been creating over expenditure, living beyond his means. But that debt has been managed at the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank has been borrowing on his behalf. So even this year alone, he has borrowed almost $30 billion US of treasury bills through the Reserve Bank. Domestic debt is almost now $50 billion US. $50 billion according to his budget statement. So surpluses are in fact deficits, but the deficits are being hid at the Reserve Bank. Now, what does he do now? He then says, I'm going to come up in early 22 with a new Reserve Bank debt assumption bill that is going to take over debt from the Reserve Bank of 3.4 billion US dollars. So we, the taxpayers now, are going to pay for his prolificness, are going to pay for his mismanagement of the economy. He has been living beyond his means. When I was Minister of Finance, I used to say, we eat what we kill. So he has been catching a rat, but killing an elephant and having the party of an elephant. He is now expecting us Zimbabweans to pay for that prolificness, to pay for the elephants that he and his children and his wives and Mr. Mnangagwa's children and their wives have been spending in the last 3 years. Why should Zimbabweans pay for the US $3.4 billion that we are going to take over? Secondly, and this makes me very sad, he went and signed an agreement with farmers for 3.5 billion US dollars compensation. We protested and said, but the constitution doesn't allow you to compensate white farmers except for improvements. And improvements surely can be worth more than 3.5 billion US dollars. Even if they are 3.5 billion US dollars, surely they must be validated and valued by a process involved in parliament. So that if a farmer says, I had a tractor, then we can see the true value of that tractor. If the farmer says, I built a barn, what is the true value of that? He also now wants a parliament to take over that 3.5 billion US dollars. So it's almost now 7 billion US dollars that he's expecting we overtaxed poor Zimbabweans to already pay for. Now there's another dishonest. I said this budget is a lie. You have heard Minister Mnangagwa and Mthuli Ncube saying Zimbabwe is a middle income country, and that by 2030 they want to achieve the position of an upper tier middle income country. But if you read their debt strategy, they are saying we want to apply for HIPIC relief. HIPIC stands for highly indebted poor country. So in order to qualify for HIPIC, you can't be middle income. You have to be very, very, very poor. Your per capita income has to be less than $500. Now they're now saying we want to be HIPIC, but all along they've been telling us we are middle income, we are middle income, we are middle income. So the long and short of it is that the whole budget is just about lies, and lies. It's a technically malfunctioning budget. And when I said yesterday that this is the worst government in the history of governments, it's wrong. This is the worst government in the history of mankind, period.
Okay, you have just heard it for yourself by the former finance minister. But I want to come back to you, Honorable.
Yes.
If it was you, how were you going to come up with a plan to cater for the debts?
Yeah, so
How do you propose
firstly, let's deal with the transitional issues. Okay. So if it was the MDC alliance, we would openly dollarize. So you've got a problem of a government pretending that we have de-dollarized and we are now using the Zimbabwean dollar. Yet everything it is doing, including payment of bonuses, it is paying in US dollars. So why pretend that you have de-dollarized when you, in fact, you are using the US dollar and the US dollar refuses to go away? So if it was the MDC alliance who would dollarize, would express this budget in US dollars, would pay civil servants in US dollars, would pay civil servants in US dollars. If we were going to have our own local currency for change, would liberalize the exchange rate. So if the parallel market is 1:170, it means that's the real exchange rate. So the official exchange rate will also be 1:170. That is very important. Number two, Mthuli Ncube in the current budget, he expects a deficit of around $76 billion. We would budget for a balanced budget. We collect $50, we spend $50. In other words, we eat what we kill. If we kill a rat, we eat a rat. In economics, 1 minus 2 doesn't work. It can't. When in economics you have 1 minus 1, 1 minus 2 equals to minus 1, you've got a problem. If your husband, my sister, earns $10,
You must eat that $10.
you must eat that $10.
Yeah.
If you now go to Edgar's and buy Georgette and whatever, that
you
household
cannot pay that.
will have a problem. And that is the problem in Zimbabwe. We are collecting $10, but people have got Lamborghinis. Ferraris are being driven at Sam Levy's village. And that is very sad and extremely sad. So, first thing, dollarize the economy. Second thing, balance the budget. Based on cash budgeting, we eat what we kill. Third thing, give tax relief to workers. Give tax relief to workers. Zimbabweans are overtaxed. 32% of our revenue come from our taxes. So we are higher than South Africa, which is on 27%. We are one of the highest taxed countries in the world. So I would give a tax relief. Number 4, give money to the social services, in particular health and education. If you look at this budget, the one presented yesterday, there's a graph there which shows that on average, the 2021 budget was only disbursed to the extent of 31%. 31%. So in other words, ministries did not get what was allocated to them. But there are certain votes like the president's office, like defense, like home affairs, which spend beyond 100%. So in the case of the president's office, it spent 114%. So these over expenditures then take the average to 60%. But in reality, Mthuli only disbursed 31% to ministries. So he's underspending on things that matter, which is people's education, which is people's health, which is people's welfare. So the MDC budget would fund the social services. Number 4, corruption. The government, the budget ought to have given incentives to fight corruption. One of those would include forced asset declarations. One of those would include incentives to whistleblowers. Give whistleblowers rewards in US dollars so that corruption is exposed. Next is debt relief. You asked me how the MDC Alliance would deal with the debt. We had a debt strategy in our smart document called SADSA, Sustainable Debt Strategy for Zimbabwe. The key thing is to deal with politics. People will not give you debt relief if you're going to steal elections, if you're going to beat up people. So the debt question is primarily not about economics. The debt question is primarily about your hygiene. Humbwa kana une humbwa varidzi vemari havakuregereri. Kana une humbwa hwekuti uri kurova vana Joanna Mamombe, vana Cecilia Chimpiri. In other words, resolve the politics first. Deal with the crisis of legitimacy. Allow the person who won the election to govern. You are 50% of the way. The other 50% is now sound macroeconomic management. You eat what you kill. Balance the books. No to corruption. No to exchange rate distortions. No to a multi-tier pricing system. Fund social services. Give grants to the poor. Fund in real terms COVID, education, and health. If you do that, the World Bank will cancel the $2 billion that we owe it. The African Development Bank will cancel the $699 million that we owe it to it. The Paris Club of Lenders will cancel the $5.4 billion that we owe to it. Lastly, deal with the reforms at the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank has become an axis of evil. The Reserve Bank have become a portal of evil. The Reserve Bank have become a workstation of shenanigans, of corruption, and of theft. This country doesn't need a Reserve Bank. Let's replace the Reserve Bank with a currency board that just deals with the question of currency, because the Reserve Bank has become an instrument of arbitrage. The Reserve Bank must stop dealing with quasi-fiscal activities. Zimbabweans know quasi-fiscal activities. And if they thought the past was bad, Mr. John Panonetsa Manguntla has redefined what quasi-fiscal activities are. As I'm talking to you right now, the Reserve Bank debt is $8 billion US. That means there's going to be a debt assumption bill of $3.4 billion US in early January. That means in 2023, there's going to be another debt assumption bill. We Zimbabweans can't afford it. When I was young and grew up in Dzwaresekwa, taitukana tichiti musoro wakazvimba nezvikwereti. I don't know kuti nyika yakazvimba nezvikwereti inonzi chii, but kana uri Zimbabwe, dai uri musoro chiri chikomo, mavhura dona iri kudanduka. Zvonyadzisa, a shame on Mthuli Ncube. It's a disaster, an absolute disaster.
Oh, you have heard it for yourself, Zimbabwe. The budget is not feasible.